How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Speed Code, and today we're going to be looking at procedures. So we've worked with procedures before, and what a procedure is it's something that allows you to basically do something. It's a procedure. So in real life, we get procedures where we want to achieve an end goal, we want to do something, and there's a whole lot of different steps that we need to follow. So in code, procedures have the exact same concept, and instead of us writing out the code each time, we instead make it a procedure so that we just call the name of the procedure every time we want to reach that end goal. So this allows coders to reuse and to share their code, because when they create a procedure, then it is stored in a unit, like how when you create your own project, it's stored under a unit. And this unit can be saved inside different libraries. And this allows them to share those unit files with other coders so they can share their code. Now, we actually have that at the moment with these. So these are all different libraries, and inside the libraries we have different unit files, or unit files, which allow us to access other coders' code, and those are the different procedures. So for instance, in the VCL library, we can access the dialogues unit. And that's why when you want to do math functions such as the random range, you have to add it into the uses. So we would say math. When we then call on, for instance, random range, it then goes and looks for that block of code that they've saved under the function random range and reuse those lines of code each time instead of having to type it out ourselves. So different examples of procedures that we can use is, for instance, the set focus when we are working with edits. However, though, we can also get procedures where we would have to give the procedure some information, such as the show message. And in there, you would then give it the message you want to display, such as hello world. So either way, you can have a procedure that has no information that you need to give it, or some information that you need to give it. Now, the information that it requires is called a parameter, and the information you give it is the argument, but more on that later. So the general format for declaring a procedure is the word procedure, then the name of the procedure, followed by a semicolon. If you want to declare a procedure with parameters, then you would have the parameters in brackets. So let's look at some real-world examples of procedures. An example of a procedure without parameters would be point your finger. But a procedure that does have parameters, this is used to give more clarification on the instructions that need to be given. For instance, if we go back to our pointing the finger example from earlier, we can say you must point, but then we can say you must point your index finger at 45 degrees to the horizontal. So there it gives clarification on which finger to point and at what angle. Another example is when we're making coffee. For instance, whenever you have guests over and you want to make them some coffee, then you'll have the procedure of making coffee, which is to add the coffee and add the sugar and then add the water and boil it obviously first, and then mix it together and add some milk. However, for each person, they're going to want a different way of making coffee. So you'll first ask them, how many teas or how many coffees do you want? How many sugars do you want? And do you like your milk warm or cold? And a whole bunch of other things. And then maybe if they have a special mug, you can say the mug they want to put it in. And those would be your parameters. And then whatever they give you, for instance, if they say they want 1 coffee and they want 3 sugars, then your arguments would be 1 and 3. So we can say that when we click on the coffee making button, then we would just go begin, make coffee, and we want 1 coffee and 2 sugars. And then in the definition of the procedure, we can say make coffee, and we're going to have an integer, the teaspoons of coffee, and another integer, teaspoons of sugar. Okay, so here we're saying this is the variable name that we're looking at, right? Because when your guest says, I want 1 teaspoon of coffee, you're going to remember teaspoons of coffee, 1. So here we've got teaspoons of coffee, and we're only going to do integers, and then our teaspoons of sugar. So now we're going to do the mundane things that you always do in making coffee. So you have to boil the kettle, then you have to add coffee, but now this is going to change each time. So whatever your teaspoon coffee value is that your guest gave you, that is the number of coffees you're going to put in. Same with the sugar, and then you're going to always add the same amount of water, and then you're going to mix the two together. You're going to add your milk, and then you're at your end. Let's see how this example would pan out. Okay, so we had the problem where we got the number of coffees that we needed, as well as the number of teaspoons of sugar. However, though, when we're running a program, we didn't know where we needed to put this coffee, sugar, and water, as well as the milk. So now we can add another parameter for the mug that they would like to use, and we'll call it S mug. And then we can, when we're adding our coffee, we can add it to S mug, as well as when we add our sugar, and when we add our water, and when we add our milk. So now it will know which mug to add it to. So if we declare our procedure, we'll usually declare it under private, and you type in the word procedure and the procedure name. So let's say we want to display a certain message, we want to greet someone. Then we would just type greet, that's the name, and then semicolon. If we go and we put our cursor in that line and we hold Control Shift and C, then it creates what is known as the definition of our procedure. And whatever we put in these begin and end blocks, that is going to be the code that is run every time we call the greet procedure. So we want to greet our users. So we're going to do a show message, but we don't know their name. So we're just going to have to say, hello there. And if we create a button, we create an on-click event for that button, and we say greet. Then when we click on the button, it is going to call whatever is under the greet procedure. So then it's going to look, and it's going to say, oh yes, there is a procedure called greet. Let me go to that code. So it goes here, procedure greet. Okay, I'm going to show this message. So if we run our program and we click on the button, there's our message. But now let's say we want to be able to greet the person by their name. Then we're going to have to change this to a procedure with parameters, because we need to get their name. So we're going to have a name. So one string variable. So we're going to call it sName, and it's of data type string. So everything inside these brackets here is input that we must get when the procedure is called. So now over here, instead of saying greet, we're going to have to put in greet and then in brackets the name. Right? So this is just like when you do the inc procedure and you have to put the number in brackets. So instead of saying hello there, okay, we're going to have to just recreate the definition. So if we can move this and go Control-Shift-C, then you see it recreates the definition with our name variable. So now we're going to say show message hello and their name, sName. So now when it looks for sName, it's going to be whatever was put in the brackets in the greet procedure over here when it is called. So if we run it now, you'll see we'll get an error, and it's on this line and it says not enough actual parameters. So if we go and we put in our two brackets, you can see it's already telling me it is looking for the string data type and the name of it is sName. So we're going to put in our sUser, and this is going to be the user's name. So we can use a different variable name here, but whatever is put in these brackets here is going to be taken as a string and will be put there. So let's create a variable, and it's going to be sUser of data type string, and that must be, we're going to make an edit for the user to input their name, and it will be the edit, sUser must get the edit text. So now when we run the program, if we put in Bob, then it says hello Bob. If we change it to Sue and we click on button 1, it says hello Sue. So now when we change the edit's value over here to Sue, then it's going to put in greet and it's going to put Sue in brackets here. So then when we call greet, it's going to over here receive Sue in brackets. So now it's going to say hello Sue. But when we change it to Bob, then it's going to say hello Bob, because this sName variable is going to be whatever is in the brackets over here. So that is procedures in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed the video and are understanding. If you would like to watch a video of me going more in depth on an example of using procedures, then click on the video on the left. Cheers.